That night, Tupac wasn't afraid of bullets. He was afraid of being completely alone forever. And when a figure wrapped in white and red appeared on that empty street at 3 in the morning, Tupac fell to his knees and said everything he had never told anyone. If you have ever felt like the whole world turned its back on you, stay right here. Because what Jesus said to him that night will shake something deep inside you. Subscribe so you never miss a single encounter. Was 1996. Tupac Shakur was at the very top of the music world. His name was on every radio station, every magazine cover, every conversation on every street corner, in every city across the United States of America. He had money that most people could never dream of. He had fame that followed him like a shadow wherever he went. He had fans who would have done anything just to be in the same room as him. From the outside, his life looked like the definition of success. But nobody knew what was happening on the inside. Behind the gold chains and the bright lights, Tupac was drowning. He had grown up with nothing. He had watched his mother fight every single day just to survive. He had seen friends get shot on the same streets where they used to play as children. He had been in prison. He had been shot multiple times and somehow survived. And instead of healing, he buried all of it. He buried the pain underneath the music, underneath the anger, underneath the image of a man who feared nothing. But fear was eating him alive, not fear of dying. He had made peace with that long ago. It was something far worse. It was the fear that nobody in this world actually knew who he really was. Not his label, not his crew, not the women who loved him, not even his closest friends. He felt like he was performing a version of himself that had nothing to do with the broken boy still living somewhere deep inside his chest. The nights were the hardest. During the day, there was always noise. There was always someone around, always something to do, always another city to fly to, always another studio session to get through. But at night, when the noise stopped, the silence became unbearable. He would sit alone in hotel rooms staring at the ceiling and asking questions that had no answers. Why was he still so empty when he had everything the world said would make him whole? Why did success feel like a prison with better furniture? Why did he feel like a stranger in his own life? On one particular night in Los Angeles, something inside him completely broke. He could not sleep. He could not stay still. He put on his clothes and walked out into the street alone at somewhere between 3 and 4 in the morning. The streets were quiet, a few distant cars, the low hum of the city still breathing somewhere far away. He walked with no destination, just his thoughts and the concrete beneath his feet. He was thinking about everything he had lost. Friends who were gone, trust that had been broken, a childhood that nobody gave back to him. He was thinking about whether any of it had a meaning, whether his life had a direction beyond surviving long enough to get to the next day. And then everything changed. He noticed a light at the end of the street. Not a street light, not a car. This was something different, something warm and completely still. And in the middle of that light stood a figure. A man in a long white robe with a deep red shawl draped over his shoulders. His hair was long and his presence was unlike anything Tupac had ever felt in his entire life. His face could not be seen. Where his face should have been, there was only light. Pure, overwhelming, undeniable light. Tupac stopped walking. His body froze. He had been in situations that would have terrified almost anyone, and he had never flinched. But this was something his mind had no category for. This was beyond anything he had ever encountered on any street, in any city, in any moment of his life. The figure spoke first. The voice was calm, not loud, not dramatic, just completely certain, like someone who had all the time in the world and needed nothing from anyone. He said, "I know what you are carrying." Tupac did not run. Something in those words stopped every instinct he had. He took a slow breath and said, "Then you know it is heavy." The figure nodded and said, "Sit with me." And so they sat together on the steps of an old building on that empty street in Los Angeles with the city sleeping all around them. and TUPAC began to talk, slowly at first, testing the water, a sentence here, a sentence there. But then it came pouring out, everything he had never said to anyone, the rage at a world that had taken so much from him before he was old enough to understand what was happening, the grief for the people he had lost, the loneliness that fame had somehow made worse instead of better, the deep and constant feeling that he was running out of time, but had no idea what he was actually running toward. He talked about his mother and the pain of watching her struggle. He talked about the streets and how they shaped him into someone he was not always proud of being. He talked about the music and how it was the only honest version of himself he ever allowed the world to see. He talked about God. He said he believed in something. He always had. But he did not know what that something was, or whether that something cared about him personally. Jesus listened to all of it without interrupting, without judging, without looking at a clock or shifting uncomfortably in his seat the way people do when a conversation gets too real. He simply listened. And when TUPAC finally went quiet, Jesus looked at him and said, "You have been searching your whole life for a foundation, something that does not move when everything else falls apart. You found pieces of it in the music. You found pieces of it in loyalty and in love. But you built your house on things that the world can take from you. And the world has been taking. I am not here to tell you that your pain was not real. Every wound you carry is real. Every injustice that was done to you was real. But pain was never meant to be your identity. You were not created to survive. You were created for something far greater than survival." TUPAC looked at him and said, "Then why does it feel like surviving is all I have ever done?" Jesus said, "Because nobody ever showed you the door. You have been standing outside your own life, pressing your face against the glass, watching other people live with peace you did not think was available to you. But it was always available to you. It is available to you right now." They talked through the rest of that night about purpose, about pain and what it is actually for, about the difference between the life the world builds for you and the life that was always meant to be yours, about what it means to surrender, not to give up, not to quit, but to finally stop carrying what was never yours to carry in the first place. And then as the sky began to change color and the first suggestion of morning appeared on the horizon, Jesus said the words that TUPAC had never heard spoken to him in a way that felt like they were meant specifically for him. There is a path that was laid down before this world began, a path of complete surrender to the one God. No partners, no images, no intermediaries, just you, your Creator, and the truth that was written inside you long before you were born into this broken world. That path has a name, and if you walk it, everything you have been searching for will not just find you. It will have always been waiting for you. TUPAC looked at the light where the face should have been and said, "What is the name of that path?" And Jesus said, "Islam." That morning, something in TUPAC SHAKUR was different. He did not announce it. He did not post about it. He did not call a press conference or put it in a song. He simply walked back through the quiet streets of Los Angeles as the sun came up, and for the first time in as long as he could remember, the silence did not feel like an enemy. It felt like something he could finally rest inside of. The weight was not completely gone, but it had shifted. Something had been placed underneath it, something solid, something that did not shake. He looked up at the sky that was turning from black to deep blue to the first pale gold of a new morning, and he whispered something to himself. Nobody heard it. Nobody was there. But the sky received it, and somewhere above all of that light it was already known. If this story moved something inside you, then you already know that what you just heard was not just about TUPAC SHAKUR. It was about every person who has ever stood on an empty street at 3 in the morning wondering if anything in this life actually means something. You are not alone in that feeling. And you did not find this video by accident. Every week, we bring you stories of people who stood at the edge of everything they knew and discovered something on the other side that changed them completely. Subscribe right now and turn on your notifications so that you never miss a single encounter. Because the next story might be the one that was always meant for you.